Kia ora tātou, welcome along to hear Stephen, Mary, Joseph from Wellington City Library's Children and Young Adults section, and we've got Claire from Raroa Intermediate, and we also have Claudine Crabtree on, who's the SLANZA president for the year. It's quite an honour and a privilege to be able to have a discussion about the intersection and individuality of children and youth services, both in the public library and in the school library, and to hear the amazing work that the school and public librarians do to ensure that our tamariki and rangatahi have access to lifelong learning as well as learning important literacy skills. So, please take it away.
Kia ora. Thank you, Jennifer. I think I'm starting. Kia ora tātou. Ko Stephen Clothier tōku ingoa. My name is Stephen Clothier, and I'm the Children's and Youth Services Coordinator here at Wellington City Libraries. The five of us today, we have some short presentations lined up for you on sort of different aspects of our work that we do with children and with young people and their families, whether in the public library or the school library sector. And I'm going first because I unfortunately have to go at 2 o'clock because I have a very important meeting to attend, which is actually about the topic that I'm talking about today. So I'm going to be talking to you today a little bit about Te Matapihi ki te Aonui, which is the Wellington Central Library, which, as many of you will be aware, is currently closed and undergoing some major renovations. So I thought that you guys might be interested in hearing a little bit more about kind of what's going on with that project, what we are planning with our new central library with regard to our services and spaces for children and teens and their families. So I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully it works. One moment, caller. Okay. Hopefully you can see that presentation there. So, so starting with the name of the building, those of you who maybe are located in Wellington or have visited before will know that Te Matapihi ki te Aonui was already the name of the Central Library prior to its closing, and it translates roughly into English as the window to the great world. And this name is significant because it was gifted to the library by Mana Whenua when the original building was created and was opened in 1991. And it's that the name of the building is kind of what is informing all of the stuff that's going on inside, whether that's to do with the collections or the spaces or the services that will be offered therein. So shortly after the Central Library closed, there was a whole bunch of consultation that went on with the public, and there were a number of themes that kind of came through as being really significant to do with this building and with the function of public libraries in general within communities. And so we kind of came together with these were some of the guiding principles that sort of lay at the centre of the Central Library planning project shortly after the building closed in March of 2019. So for me, I mean, I don't need to read these all out to you. You can all see perfectly well what's on the screen, but putting knowledge at the centre, future-proofing the service, the importance of Te Ngako, the civic square, as kind of the living room of the city. The library space itself was a theme that came through as being really, really important, even, to be honest, more so than the collections that it held. So the purpose of library space as sort of multi-use, multi-purpose community spaces that people can use in a variety of different ways. And another element that came through quite strongly in feedback from the public was that they quite liked some of the architectural elements of the building, most prominently the Nico palms outside the building, which have kind of become this iconic emblem of the building. So following this, there was a bunch of consultation that went on with mana whenua groups in Wellington. So in particular with Te Aotearoa, with the Wellington 10th Trust, and with other iwi groups in the Wellington region. And as a result of this consultation, there was some additional principles put together to do with the significance of this project for local Māori. So centering Te Ao Māori in the whole process, whether that's from the design, the interior design, the collection, the layouts, the programs, and so on. Acknowledging the significance of the place, the physical location where the library stands currently. The use of Te Reo Māori within the building and outside the building was also signalled as being really of great significance to local Māori. Giving special primacy to the Māori collections within the building, which are really significant nationally. And also, we heard a lot from local Māori about the importance of having sort of bicultural governance of the project, and to sort of build on the cultural competency of our staff within the library and also those involved in the design process. This is all going to come together in a meaningful way for children and young people momentarily. And obviously, as you all know, you're all librarians, presumably libraries have changed a lot since 1991. And the old iteration of that building was designed before the internet was widely used by New Zealanders. It was designed sort of primarily, I would say, as a collection sort of holding zone, with community spaces kind of coming at a pretty distant seconds to that priority. So we knew that there needed to be a pretty radical change in the way that the building was actually designed on the inside, to kind of meet with the changing needs of our community, and especially with the needs of sort of inner city families, and in particular youth, teenagers, for whom the Central Library is, or was when it was open, a really major meeting place. But it was never really designed with that in mind. So we saw a really great opportunity with this kind of redesign process to kind of recenter children, families, and teenagers as being a really core and integral part of the audience for our library services in the CBD, in the Wellington CBD. So the opportunity for us, as I mentioned, is really to bring new services and spaces to life in this new library that will offer a genuinely sort of 21st century service and experience for our children, families, and young people in Wellington. And you can see here not staged at all photo of Waitohi, our library and community hub out in Johnsonville, which was my former workplace and where my colleague Mary currently works. We see this as being a really great example of how a library can be kind of reimagined to become this sort of meeting place for all members of the community. So just touching again briefly on engagements with mana whenua, with local Māori. So one of the really important sort of strands that has come through is really seriously commencing with the use of the Te Reo Māori name of the building, Te Matapihi ki te ao nui. The building contains a library, yes, and the library is a really important part of what the building offers, but we wanted to really make sure that sort of from this time forward, we're really promoting the use of the Te Reo name, because it encapsulates so much of what we want the building to achieve. And also in terms of the actual design process with the new iteration of the library, we've been working with Te Ao Māori designers, with a design firm called Tihe, who some of you might be familiar with. If you've ever visited the Palmerston North, the New Plymouth Airport, you will have seen some of their award-winning work there. There's also been a mana whenua reference group, as I mentioned earlier, who helped put together some principles about the services of the library for Māori. And we really wanted to embed all of these processes in the spatial and operational and service design. But the real focus of what I want to talk about for the next sort of 5 minutes or so is on how we are kind of trying to redesign this facility, Te Matapihi ki te Aonui, or Te Matapihi for short, with our visitors in mind, and really deeply understanding what it actually means when you say, you know, the library is for everybody, because it's something that is very frequently kind of thrown around in library spheres, the notion that the public library is a space where everyone is welcome, it's the living room of the city, and so on and so forth. These have kind of become cliches of library service design over the last 20 years. But it's very, very difficult to bring that through into actuality. You know, we know that despite having this kind of egalitarian goal at our core, that there are key populations that we miss out on serving in the most full way. So we need to kind of radically rethink that. And in particular, understanding the role that the public library plays as social infrastructure. Partially, yes, in terms of, you know, connecting people who might need social services to those services, and you know, other library systems around the country, most notably Auckland libraries, have done a huge amount of work in this space over the last 10 to 15 years. But also in a more informal way, you know, how is the facility kind of serving the social needs, you know, the sort of interaction needs of Wellingtonians, and of course my focus within that is very much on children and young people. So just very quickly on this slide, just to note that, as I mentioned earlier, the library is in the building, but we are also being joined by some other colleagues from the City Archives Service, from the Council Service Centre, and also with our colleagues at Capital E, who are a council-controlled organisation who deliver programs and services of a creative nature for children and teens at the moment. Things like, you know, TV programs, production programs, coding programs, and so on. So they'll be joining us in the new iteration of Te Matapihi as well. I'll skip through some of this, blah, 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 blah. Just to mention very quickly on this stage that as far as like service design goes, so thinking about, you know, what will people actually be able to do within the library, we kind of see those as happening in these 5 distinct columns that sort of range from the sort of self-directed, you know, making your way through the building and using the spaces intuitively in the ways that they're designed to be used, all the way through to much more personalized and kind of staff intensive ways of delivering services. So I won't go into this in any great amount of detail, except to say that that's kind of how we're conceptualizing of the range of services that will be available within the building. I want to kind of skip ahead to what we're specifically designing in the building for children and teens. So forgive me for skipping through some of this content at a rather rapid clip, but this will be available for viewing on YouTube afterwards. You can always pause it and have a read of some of these slides. And of course, you can ask any questions as well throughout this presentation. But when we are thinking about youth spaces and children's spaces within Te Matapihi, they need to be thought of in different ways. I think there's a tendency within libraries often to kind of lump children and teens together as though they are the same demographic, as though they have the same needs. I mean, look at my job title, Children's and Youth Services Coordinator, you know, as though it's sort of possible to encapsulate everything that children and teens need or might want in sort of one person. So when we're thinking about the spaces made available for youth at Te Matapihi, we're thinking of them as being really highly multifunctional, centering space and spaciousness as kind of the most important aspect of those design spaces, having a real mix of privacy and sort of wide open spaces, having the furniture, shelving, space itself to be highly flexible and kind of mutable, so it can be changed on a dime if it needs to be, and that it's kind of creative. You know, we don't want to just have rows and rows and rows of shelves in a line. We want the space itself to kind of have the sort of creative and spontaneous feeling that that we know youth have told us that they are interested in. Lots of PowerPoints everywhere, obviously, places to plug things in. And we really want to design these spaces in a way that really encourages lingering. So for teens to spend a long time with us, because that's what they've told us they would like to do. In our children's spaces, the focus is slightly different. Really highly vibrant sort of designs that encourage exploration and sort of leading you physically through the space. So not necessarily always thinking of the children's area as being a space for kind of static habitation, but for kind of moving through and discovering. And something that was really important for us as well is the notion of playing with scale, so that within the children's area, there are places where you can be very, very enclosed in kind of little nooks or cocoon-like structures, and other spaces which are much more open, where you get sort of suddenly opened up to, you know, the ceilings that are 15 meters tall and the enormous windows look out over the ocean and so on. So playing with that notion of, you know, being a small person in a small space, but also being a small person in a really big space, and how that feels quite different. So again, very quickly zooming through, this is a sort of provisional draft of the children's area at in the redesigned Te Matapihi. The sort of green blob is what's been designated as the children's area. This is on the ground floor. So for those of you that maybe recall the old Central Library building, this is where the adult fiction area previously was. Used to be a pretty shelving intensive part of the library, very, very tall shelves, very, very few windows. And the new iteration of this space is very different. The size of the collection is about 40,000 items, which is just about the same as what was previously kept at the Central Library. And the amenities include a sort of quite comprehensive caregivers room. It says room there, but it's actually more of a complex. There are several different spaces for, you know, feeding and toileting and relaxing for caregivers with the young children. A large event space, which allows for, you know, up to about 100 children plus their caregivers to be present at any given time. A low sensory room that has, you know, really high degree of soundproofing and sort of, you know, fully child controllable lighting and other amenities in the space. And also something called vertical discovery. Exactly what this is still kind of being worked out with Tihei, with our mana whenua designers, but it'll be a sort of playful and artistic sort of installation element that children will be able to kind of climb on, explore, find a new vantage point to kind of look out over the library and its collections, and to sort of, you know, find reading nooks and so on that aren't all necessarily just at ground level. So encouraging that again, that playing with scale of the sort of spaces that are close to the ground and the spaces that are a bit higher up. The youth area is separate to the children's area. It's on a different level. It's 2 floors above. That was something that we heard really strongly from teens, was that they didn't want their part of the library to be next to or strongly associated with the children's area. So it's literally about as far away as it could possibly be within the library. And the space that's available for them is about 4 times larger than what was previously allocated to teens at the old iteration of the Central Library. The collection size is a little bit bigger, about 11,000 items we're intending to be held here in the young adult collection. And the amenities include all the kind of standard things you would expect to find, to be honest, in a youth space, you know, modular furniture, study seating, a sort of open kitchenette that kids can use to make a Milo or a hot chocolate or heat up their noodles or whatever they want to do. Spaces for things like gaming, but also for displaying, you know, artworks that they've created elsewhere in the building, and sort of exhibition spaces too, for them to sort of, you know, show off their button collection or their collection of, you know, transformer models or whatever it is they kind of want to do. Having these sort of flexible creative spaces that teens can kind of use however they want to share their creativity. And there are some interesting adjacent spaces to the youth area, including the Media Lab, which is kind of a big sort of 3D design computer lab, a rehearsal and performance space for theatrical production, a couple of audio recording studios, a TV recording studio, and also the audiovisual collection, including vinyl records, potentially musical instruments for hire, and all kinds of other interesting services like that. So it's kind of next to and adjacent to a range of interesting spaces that teens will find hopefully useful. And just very quickly mentioning as well some other spaces that are sort of being designed with children and teens in mind. There's a community sort of meeting hub on the mezzanine level, which includes a public access kitchen. There's the makerspace on level 1, which includes 3D printers, laser cutters, CNC machines, resin printers, a sort of small art classroom style space, fibercraft, sewing machines, and so on. And also a large event space in the form of the Civic Room, which is just a very provisional name, but that will have capacity to hold sort of around 200 spectators for sort of large scale events. So yeah, that's kind of the design of the redesign, the reimagining of our central library, Te Matapihi, and what it will offer for teens and children in a spatial sense. I don't have any more time in this session to go through the things that we're planning in terms of service design and programs, except to say that over the next 2 years, there'll be quite an intensive period of co-design with local youth. We will be sort of working through what they would like to use the spaces for and how we can make that happen. So yeah, that's basically it for my presentation. I'm going to recede into the shadows now and pass on to my next colleague, who will be talking to you about something totally different. So thanks very much, and do feel free to post any questions you have in the chat. Thanks very much.
Kia ora, Stephen. Thank you so much. We really enjoyed that, and it's really nice to see that Matapihi is coming together, and it's going to be very exciting. So next up, we have Claire and Claudine. So we're going from talking about the fun stuff to talking about the important stuff. So school and reading is a big part of most people's lives, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the 2 librarians that we have today manage to engage children at a very young age to not only read but to join the school library and to make the most of it. So I'm not sure who's first, but I'll just give you a very brief bio. Claudine is the president or manakura of SLANZA, and in her own words, she's passionate about reading engagement, so she'll be talking to us about that. And Claire is presenting on the importance of the school librarian role in Aotearoa and the work that SLANZA does in supporting school librarians and school libraries, which will lead us back to the public library space. So whoever feels they want to go first, please, away you go.
I think that's me. So, tēnā koutou kōrua, called Claudine Crabtree tōku ingoa. And I'm the library manager at Barradine College in Auckland. I'm also, as you said, thank you, manukura of SLANZA, and very new to the role. It's only been 5 weeks. So yeah, I'm at the discovery stage of that. I've been a school librarian for about 10 years in the UK and in Aotearoa, in primary, intermediate and secondary schools, and passionate about reading for pleasure and connecting students with books. And yeah, I want to share with you today the role school librarians play in encouraging and supporting reading for pleasure. And I just also wanted to say thanks so much for this opportunity, actually. And it's great to be able to share the work we all do in encouraging our students to read for pleasure. and to learn and become lifelong learners and lifelong readers, and how great that we can all work together towards that goal. So yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity. I am going to share my screen, so you don't have to look at my face. Is that working? All good? Yeah, thanks, Claire. Okay, so SLANZA, and I work at Barradine. This is a fantastic quote Neil Gaiman's given us, which is probably my favourite quote about reading and books and children in school libraries. I know I'm preaching to the converted, and you all are aware of how important reading for pleasure is, but I found this quote a while ago now, and it is again one of my favourites. And this is something we reiterate to our students as well about how important reading actually is. So yeah, one maybe to at least be aware of. Research has obviously proven that reading for pleasure has significant benefits, including improving literacy, social skills and empathy, health, learning outcomes, and thankfully, and yay, it's now included in the Te Matapihi, which is the New Zealand curriculum refresh. Yay! So schools are obviously important in reading and reading for pleasure. Often the focus at school is actually about teaching them to read, and that's great and obviously very important. But the other side of that is actually teaching them to enjoy reading as well, which is obviously really important to keep them reading. And the factors that create engaged readers, there's certain factors that increase the likelihood of creating engaged readers, and that includes access to books, which is obviously a fairly obvious one, that they can choose their own books to read, that they have regular opportunities to read independently, that they're read aloud to regularly, that they have time to chat about books and reading, and that they have reading role models. School libraries are critical in engaging students' reading, providing equal, easily accessible on-site access to physical and online resources, and giving them those factors, including freedom to choose what they want to read and providing regular opportunities for reading. Our library is open for longer hours than the school day. It's open at break times. We have class visits and scheduled class time for silent reading, although unfortunately not for all year groups yet. We are reading role models as well and encourage our staff to be reading role models. At Barradine, we have Year 7 and Year 8 English classes coming in for sustained silent reading for a period of fortnight. We've got teachers who bring their classes in to read outside of those Year 7 and 8 year groups to browse and borrow books and have a bit of a change of scene as well. We have warm, friendly, welcoming staff, and that's really important, I think, to make students really want to come in and engage with us and chat to us and communicate with us and share even what's holding them back from reading or any barriers they might think they have to reading. We make sure the collection has books that they actually want to read, that it's built for students and staff and not for us as librarians, that it's a warm, cosy, comfortable, safe space to be. And we often have students that need to come to the library or are keen on coming to the library because they need some quiet space or somewhere to be that's away from the noise or other issues that are happening in the classroom as well. We don't have any limit on how many books the students can borrow, and they can borrow for the holidays as well, so for term and summer holidays. We also obviously collaborate and communicate and cooperate with staff about reading for pleasure and information literacy and resourcing for their classes and subjects. And Annie, my colleague, and I are present at parent-teacher interviews as well. So we started that this year, and that's been quite positive. It's a new kind of step for us, and it's just a great opportunity to engage with parents actually, and to actually help them understand what else they can do to support their students' reading. One of the key advantages, obviously, I should actually stop this. One of the key advantages of a school library is that it's at the school. So that's so positive and important, because obviously there's no barriers to the student coming to the library. They don't have to get in a car, they don't have to ask somebody for a lift, they don't have to drive themselves there if they're a senior student. We're here, we're available, we're open, and we're easily accessible for all students and staff. And breaking down barriers to those blocks that keep them from reading is critical. So it's great that we're actually able to do that. It's also one of the few places in the school where we have an opportunity to meet and speak to every student. So we have a unique kind of advantage in that they come to us, they don't have their baggage, if you like, or their however they might be in the rest of the school. We don't get to see that, and that's actually really good, because when they come in to see us, they're fresh and new, and we don't take any of that into account, and so as much as possible. And it's nice for them as well, because they're able to just hopefully be pretty open and honest with us about what they want to read, about any other needs or wishes or wants they might have in terms of their reading and learning. The important point I wanted to make is that our golden opportunity each day is to actually engage one-on-one with students. And when they come in with their classes, we have time to be able to do that before they settle down, if you like. And we may only talk to 2 or 3 or 4 at the beginning of a session, or beginning of that sustained silent reading, but that is like the magic opportunity to actually chat to a student one-on-one and really understand what they're looking for, help them find a book, and I guess breaking down those barriers. And I always think if there's one thing I've done each day, and that is that I've engaged a student in the book, it's been a pretty successful day. I'll set it to sharing quickly. Oops. And this was in the paper, in the Guardian, and I just thought it really summed up really well that about school libraries and why they're really important. So that's something perhaps you can have a look at another time, because I'm aware that I'm taking up a lot more time than I'm supposed to. And I did this diagram a little while ago, and I've just changed it a little, but I just thought this is kind of helped me, and is a nice visual representation of libraries across a lifetime. So you can see school libraries obviously sitting in the middle there. We are where the students are. There's no need for transport, no parental intervention required. And then we've got public libraries, yay, which at various stages do need an adult or somebody else to help, but progressively through, obviously, they're able to independently access those if they wish. So, yeah, I just wanted to show you that, and I hope it's helpful. And just a couple of websites. We get really well supported by National Library as school librarians, and if you want to see and know more about school libraries, that's a great place to go. And obviously SLANZA as well. That's our website address. Thanks so much. Ngā mihi kia pai tora whakatā. Thanks.
Thank you, Claudine, and thank you, Stephen. That's very exciting to see what's happening with our new library. There's been a big hole in Wellington for far too long, so I'm very excited by that. I'm going to see if I can share a screen, just because. Oh, that's not what we should. Here we go. So I'm going to apologise for all the green. SLANZA's colours are green. It's my favourite colour, so you're going to get a lot of green, which is cool. As Claude's already mentioned, school libraries and school librarians are important. All librarians are important for adults and for children. But schools are in a unique kind of place. So I'm just, I suppose you can't see all of that, can you? Anyway, so what I'm going to say about the nature of being a school librarian in Aotearoa is probably different from every other country, but we basically have to do everything. So because often in a school there's only us. Sometimes in colleges there's more than one. Mostly in a primary school we are part-time, or there is only one of us, and we have to do everything. So that's everything from managing the whole library, buying the books, checking, making sure that everything works, to teaching information literacy, to making sure the environment is an amazing and safe and inclusive space, to the whole lot. And that's why it's such a good job, because we do get to do everything, and we do get to make a difference. So reading, huge, obviously. The one of the biggest things that you can ever do is get those children on the journey to have a joy of reading. As research has already shown, that's, it makes us better people. It will make the world a better place. So why would we not be doing that? And there are many things that we can do to make that happen. The exciting thing is that we have a captive audience. Absolutely. Children have to come to school, and then we get to know our community and we get to know our staff. So that's what we work with, to influence them as much as possible to get everybody into that amazing state of joy about reading, because it's very different for different students. And I always think that that's maybe where we have to specialise compared to being in a public library, because often children who are going to a public library are going because they want to go, or because their parents want them to go, and make a choice often to do so, and that they're already halfway there because that's their attitude. Whereas we have kids who, I do not know how many times I have heard, I don't like reading, I'm not a reader, that's not my kind of a thing. And those are the kids that we love to work with. That is a challenge for us to turn them around, and whichever way, whether it's through graphic novels, or finding them some non-fiction that's going to excite them, to whatever it is that we have to do, and that's our speciality, which is wonderful. The other thing that many school librarians do is and hugely important more and more now, because of the amount of misinformation and disinformation out there, is to be assisting students with learning how to do research with information literacy skills. So this is huge, and even 5-year-olds and primary school students need to have a certain understanding of how to deal with the amount of information that they are bombarded with. And so another skill set that school librarians have. And then importantly, and I think especially probably with those teenagers that you were talking about, Stephen, is the pastoral care. That is huge, having a safe space, having providing them with an inclusive space or a diverse space, or being able to see themselves in the books that are around them, or just being allowed to be in a place without anyone going, have you finished your assignment? What are you doing? You know, all that kind of stuff, and a non-judgmental place to be. So that is cool. So sadly, as amazing and as wonderful as we are, and so how important we are for children in Aotearoa, there aren't enough of us, and there are not enough schools that actually have a school library. So we don't really know because school libraries are not mandated by the Ministry of Education, and I don't know whether any party that you might vote for in the next election are going to mandate it either, so nobody said they will. Shame. So basically they don't collect any stats on whether or not a school has a library and whether it has a library staff member. So we estimate, from what we can gather from who gets paid as a librarian and information that we've gathered, that probably only a third of schools in this country have a school library with a dedicated library staff person. Now, when we tell people, I recently got to talk to our board of trustees about what we're doing in the library, because that's fun, and they were horrified, mainly because I work in a school that for the, you know, however many 50 years it's been open, has always had a library, and it's never, no one's ever considered that it shouldn't have one. And that's the case for you know, a lot of schools. But basically we are, school librarians and libraries are funded through the operating grant, which is a whole bunch of money that a school gets given, and then they have to decide what they're going to do with it. So they might have to buy toilet paper, and they might have to pay for other support staff like teacher aides, and they might have to fix the roof because it's leaking. So we have to compete with that. And so there are very many times when a school goes, we haven't got enough money, or we haven't got enough room, we need that space for a classroom, we're just going to put the books away in a box or somewhere, and then it disappears and it never happens. So criminal. So basically what SLANZA, the School Library Association of New Zealand Aotearoa, decided to do three years ago was to start a campaign, because this was not okay, and we were obviously concerned because it's almost, well, it's not arbitrary whether you have one or not, but it's certainly not based on the usefulness and the importance of what we can offer students. It comes down to whether you've got enough money, which is not okay. So we started this campaign, which has been running for 3 years, and there's a petition here which everyone can go and sign if they haven't already. And got some traction and got some notice. So there's a website here which has got everything that you ever needed to know about what to do. So sadly, the campaign's just about to run down, which doesn't mean that we're not still going to be fighting for making sure that school libraries and school librarians exist. So basically, I don't know if I really want to run through all of these things. As I was saying, school librarians get to do everything. We are a mixed bag of people too. In many countries around the world, school librarians are trained as teacher librarians and have to be qualified teacher librarians. That hasn't happened in New Zealand for quite some time, and so we have a real mix of trained librarians and people who are not, but who learn on the job. And in some schools there will be a person who does a couple of other jobs in the school and gets to spend 10 hours a week, if you're lucky, in the library sorting everything out, to someone who's full-time, 52 weeks a year, and well funded with lots of resources and lots of support from their teacher colleagues. So there's a whole range, but we do have to we do have to learn to do everything, and the passion shows in the most excellent libraries that that New Zealand has. And I think that school libraries kind of range from the non-existent, obviously, to the very best examples of what we have. So yes, again, I've said all of this, but again, information literacy is such an important role that we're having to keep up to date with. School librarians often study at Open Polytech. SLANZA also provides professional development. Often you just figure things out yourself. There's an awful lot of that going on, but we network. Boy, do we network. So often, because school librarians are, the one librarian in the school, and it's a kind of quite an isolating, you're not isolated, but it is an isolating role in that nobody else really understands what you do. Ministry of Education doesn't really understand what we do, sadly, and often teachers are unaware of what you can offer. So we jump up and down a lot and say, we can help. That's what librarians do all the time, don't they? That's what they say. That is our role. So we do it in all different sorts of ways, online, with books, taking classes. It can be, it can range. So again, it depends on the school, depends on how much support you have, how much experience and expertise you have. But what librarian doesn't do book recommendations? Excuse me. Isn't that the best? I always think readers advisory is the best part of the job, that when you can convert children to be avid fans of your favorite author is just like, what better thing to do. So a little bit about SLANZA. So SLANZA is the professional organisation for school librarians in Aotearoa, and we our role obviously is to support and empower library staff and make sure that nobody gets to forget that school libraries are important. This is how we work. I told you it was green. This is how we work at the moment, although change is afoot as we are doing some governance training and maybe hoping to make it a system, I'm trying to say more efficient, better for everyone. So we have a membership throughout the country, and a national exec who work extremely hard and are represented by all of the different areas. And then we have different areas that we are hoping that people will join us to work on, so that lots of work can get done, because there's a huge amount of work to do to support everybody, because we become experts. It's really good to share that expertise. Yes, so here are the groups. I won't go through them yet. It's another thing that you can look at, but there are a lot of areas of expertise. Some lovely podcasts that is really educational and entertaining, that everyone should listen to. But we do a lot of PD. We have a magazine. We do we do all of this, which is and then we're all over. So that's us, really. So thank you. I will exit out.
Great, thank you so much, Claire. That was very insightful. I have to say that being a special librarian for most of my career, I did not know that. I know that the SLANZA professionals are very hardworking, but I did not realise that there was no mandate for your existence. So. Anyway, on to our next two speakers, and thank you very much to Claudine. That was fabulous. Been a fabulous afternoon so far. So next up is Joseph Robinson from Wellington Library, and he's the Children and Youth Services Coordinator, and he is going to focus on the opportunities for collaboration with the redesign of Te Matapihi, and especially where we see the public library in the lives of our children, our young people and their families. So thank you very much, Stephen.
Kia ora koutou. Hey, so no airangi, no ingarangi, no wera oku tipuna, I tae mai oku tipuna ki Aotearoa I te tau 1852, e tipu ake au ki Taranaki, e noho ana au ki te whanganui tara, ko tēnei taku mihi ki ngā tangata whenua o te rohu nei. Ka no reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, yeah, my name's Joseph Robinson. So I'm actually a children and youth specialist that's working primarily to support the whole network of Wellington City Libraries, all our public branches. My role is a secondment that was initially necessitated by all the work that my great colleague Stephen has been doing on the Te Matapihi project that he's been able to just share with you. So today I thought I'd actually zoom in and focus on some of what we're doing in the history related spaces. So I'm sure a lot of our librarians that are tuning in today will be in a similar situation as we are at Wellington City Libraries, where we're receiving a really noticeable uptick and increasing queries about especially local rohe history, but also just national history of Aotearoa New Zealand as well. So I'd just quickly, thanks again to everyone else that's presented so far, Claudine, Claire, Stephen. I think a lot of what I'll be speaking about is about the collaboration between both our team internally and different institutions around New Zealand. So there's going to be a lot of me thanking different people for their input all through my little korero here. So of course at Wellington City Libraries, we every weekday welcome the 3 p.m. rush of kids and young people as they finish up their school day. Our community and customer service librarians also provide amazing class visits during the day that can be booked by school classes, and that helps support the development of information literacy within the public library context. Of course, our selectors, our catalogers work really hard to make sure we've got a great quality range of resources available on the shelves, as well as curating a great range of e-resources. We have a brilliant team, small but brilliant team of specialists who also provide great advice to our staff all around the city to help support the sorts of queries that we get on all sorts of topics. But this year, of course, New Zealand schools are now teaching the updated curriculum for Aotearoa New Zealand histories, part of the implementation of Te Matapihi, the refreshed New Zealand curriculum. So firstly, we're really grateful to the Services to Schools team at National Library who've helped provide some really great training around the Aotearoa New Zealand's histories curriculum. And that's fed into a really great piece of collaborative work that I'll be detailing in just a second. But as you probably all know, the updated curriculum makes clear the expectation that our histories are part of local curriculums in every school, every kura around New Zealand. So the curriculum content uses the understand, know, and do elements, along with like a progression approach, and the curriculum contexts, some of the core kind of knowledge themes, whakapapa me te whanaungatanga, culture and identity, tino rangatiratanga me te kawanatanga, government and organisation, tūranga waiwai me te kaitiakitanga, place and environment, ko whiringa, oha me te whai oranga, economic activity, and as mentioned, those rohi and local contexts. So of course, we aren't teachers at the public libraries, but we can support students who are developing their knowledge of what resources exist, what databases are available, and also building their skills to critically appraise those sources. So first off, I'd like to refer to the Many Answers Regional Resources Project that's been coordinated by the Services to Schools team at National Library, drawing on the wealth of knowledge from public librarians all around Aotearoa. And the team there provided an excellent audit framework. So we were able to assess a huge number of resources, national general resources, as well as more specific local resources for inclusion in a Many Answers article that would provide students with links to places where they can further find out information for their queries and research topics pertaining to Aotearoa New Zealand histories and local histories. So Many Answers, of course, as part of the Any Questions service. It's providing support to our students all around the country. But the Many Answers article, at least the initial Many Answers Regional Resources Project articles, are primarily being targeted at the year 7 to year 10 kind of age group. And we've just had so much support in that inquiry from all around our team as well, our specialists and rewiti, our Māori specialists and ka taught, our heritage and local history specialists, I think deserve an extra special mention for the incredible advice and guidance that they've provided. It's been a huge project, it's been a huge undertaking, and the wonderful Penelope in the Services to Schools team has just recently finished an incredible project of editing so many different articles, but has approved our one so far. So it's almost ready to be listed publicly. Not quite. So I can't bring it up on the screen, share my screen to show you where it is publicly. But in the meantime, please do check out the Many Answers articles that are available. Some of the most popular articles and most successfully, most frequently accessed articles are on New Zealand history topics at the moment. So it's great to continue to build those resources. But we are using it internally already, both as something that staff at the desks can have at their fingertips to answer student queries, but also to help them prepare for class visit sessions. So the sort of resources on there, they do go from the quite general, like Te Ara Encyclopedia, but even Te Ara, it's surprising sometimes how many students that make queries on through resources like Any Questions haven't actually accessed or used Te Ara before. But we also use more local resources like Recollect, which is one of my favorite sources to mention, which has a lot of resources pertaining to Whanganui Atara Wellington Pōneke local history, and that's curated by Wellington City Libraries, and has an awesome feature where people can search by geotag as well, so students can find photos from their suburb and their immediate area, which can just really ground history, I think, for students. So yeah, keep an eye out for, of course, our Wellington article, but also other articles around the country from different regions. We're also curating a bit of a physical book list for our staff to have for reference for schools, students, and teachers. Of course, these documents do have gaps, partly because we're trying to select deliberetely resources that are accessible and understandable to students, and partly because we're hoping to see more content published in certain areas as well. I mean, the curriculum theme around economic activity, for example, for young students, there might not be as many resources as we'd like to see yet. So it's a living document. We're always looking to update it. We're looking for suggestions from our staff to improve what we can suggest in those recommendations. Another document Stephen curates, which I think is awesome, with the content provided again by the Services to Schools team, as sort of a list of important dates, and that's curated based on ngā rangi e heke mai ana I roto hitori o Aotearoa, which is the upcoming dates in Aotearoa New Zealand history communique that comes through from the Services to Schools team. So we've got all of these resources available in our class visits folder, and we periodically send out communications or have meetings with our staff internally around the whole networks. We do have 13 library sites to make sure that as many people as possible know about these sources and can share them with their team and help us further develop them and grow them. We're very grateful within the class visit context to also have Andrea Whitty and Gabo Taught there to help support our staff and give them a really good sense of what resources are available, what databases we can share. Yeah, we've also got some pre-existing curriculum linked modules for information literacy that can be presented as is more or less for those class visits. But I think as we see Te Matapihi, it's going to be a great opportunity for us to refresh as well our internal class visit kind of guidelines and documents. So there's a lot of work to do, and I'm sure everyone around the country is contributing to this path as we get to better share our local and national histories with students. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Joseph. And that was really interesting. I don't think we focus on history enough, and it's really good to help our rangatahi and tamariki get started at a very young age and in a very safe way. So thank you for your work, your mahi. It's really appreciated, and especially during Te Wiki Aotearoa Māori. So our last speaker today is Mary, and she's going to talk about reading for pleasure, and especially around getting the teenagers into reading. So this is going to be fun. I think this is something, the part that I've been looking forward to the most, especially to hear how you manage all of that. So thank you very much, Mary. I'd love to hear from you.
Kia ora, Jennifer. Thank you, and kia ora koutou. As Jennifer said, I'm Mary, and I'm also one of the Children and Youth Services specialists at Wellington City Libraries. My role is a slightly different one to Joseph and Stephen, as both of them have a more sort of broader network-wide approach and view. That's where they're based, sort of the top of the umbrella looking out over everyone else, whereas I'm the specialist specifically for the Northern Wellington libraries, a role that was created when the new Johnsonville Library at Waitohi Hub was about to open at the end of 2019. So yeah, my role is much more site specific and involved in a lot more of the day-to-day aspects of what happens within my libraries than their jobs do. However, we do collaborate a lot. Yeah, I do a lot of sort of supporting staff out here in the north and helping with program planning and delivery and ideas, and also a lot of those things for myself. Delivering programs and coming up with ideas for new and exciting events. And so what I will be talking about is, yes, rangatahi, teenagers, but less of the reading for pleasure and reading engagement, and more about getting them into the libraries. Claire mentioned having a captive audience at school. We don't have that so much. We need to figure out ways to bring our audience to us, and teenagers are a difficult audience to connect with, because with children, post something that their parents will see and their parents will bring them along. With teenagers, young adults, they need to be the ones to decide that they want to come along themselves. So that focus on youth engagement and rebuilding our services and programs for that age group, sort of 13 to young adult can be thought of as 13 to 24 or 13 to 18, but that general young adult age group, that has been a focus of ours for the last few years, because we did have a bit of a drop in what programs and services we did have available for this group for a while. So we are working very hard to bring those back. So yes, I'm going to be speaking about a few of the things that we have been doing, we are doing, and what we are working on getting ready to do, to sort of really engage and bring more youth back into our library spaces. Yeah, so part of what Stephen mentioned was the co-design of programs and services. We have sort of a team who regularly meets, and we discuss things to do with youth engagement. And this focus did start back in 2019. And one of the earliest things they did at the start of 2020, right before a lot of our programs unfortunately had to be put on hold, was they created youth nights. So the youth nights are an after hours event in our libraries for young people aged 14 to 18. These are held in our sites once a month on a Saturday evening. And during these events, the library is open only for youth. So we close the library, we set up, we reopen it, we check the student IDs at the door. You're over 18, sorry, you're not coming in. This is a time especially for that 14 to 18 age group. Once they're in, they're free to use the space as they want, though we do have a code of conduct and guidelines. I am going to jump in and out of sharing my screen a bit today, just to show you some pictures, because I think pictures are fun. Let's see. Oh, if I can get it to work, possibly I can't. Ah, here we go, it's loaded now. So yes, our youth nights. So I've got some pictures here from some of our youth nights. Each monthly youth night will have a different activity or theme. Examples we've had are picture on the left, movie night, picture on the right, blanket forts. We've had recently dinosaurs, we've had Transformers, we've had a preschool night where we started off with a story time as if they were preschoolers, and we had Play-Doh for them to play with. We've had newspaper fashion shows. We have Rainbow Youth Nights for Wellington Pride or Out on the Shelves. And as well as these sort of specifically themed activities, we also have other sort of options for lower energy activities available, such as a quiet, low sensory space, selection of board games or jigsaw puzzles to choose from, colouring in. We have a makerspace here at Johnsonville Library, so the Johnsonville Youth Nights are able to make use of those activities, or they can do what they want. They can sit in a corner and read board books to each other. That has happened. Or there has been success lately with a group of our teenagers connecting one of their laptops up to one of our screens and playing Jackbox games. So there's a whole lot of different activities and things that we try and provide, just so every kind of teenager will have something to do. And we also feed them pizza, which is a useful way of bringing people in. So that first youth night in Johnsonville in February 2020 had around, I think, 15 to 18 attendees. Once they were back on after the lull in programs, they rose to around 60. That year culminating in the infamous Youth Night Sleepover, which involved a trip over the road to the Te Pātaka Storage and Distribution Centre, where they got to investigate the rolling stacks. And now the Johnsonville Youth Nights are sitting fairly comfortably at between 30 and 40 attending each month. With those initial youth nights here at Johnsonville, I found it quite exciting how quickly the teenagers who attended those early events became to see the library as their space, even when it was open to the general public, and how comfortable they just became in dropping in to visit, waiting for the bus, coming into the makerspace, chatting with staff, because they were able to explore the space when it was just them in there. They got so much more ownership of what we had to offer. It was just a wonderful feeling. We now have 2 libraries across our library network who run youth nights. So Johnsonville Library, we still run them, and so does the Clothier Library. And I believe in this meeting, we have got one of the people who is instrumental in delivering the Clothier Library youth night. So I hope I don't say any lies about your wonderful youth nights, Eloisa. Something I think a fantastic sort of collaboration within the Clothier community is that they've recently had great success with inviting one of the tutors from the Clothier Arts and Crafts Centre to come and sort of teach a craft or deliver a workshop session at their youth nights. The last month was crochet, and the numbers for that youth night definitely jumped up from what they previously had been. And the next Clothier Youth Night is tomorrow night. So if you are in Wellington and know a teenager, please do encourage them to come along. And the tutor from the Clothier Arts and Crafts Centre had been successful in running craft classes for youth, and several of the youth who attended those sessions had expressed interest in youth nights. So I think that's a wonderful collaboration. We're also working on setting up another regular youth night at the other end of town over in Kilbirnie. So that sort of triangle of Johnsonville, Clothier, Kilbirnie should give us fairly good coverage of the whole city of Wellington. The youth nights also let us sort of engage with the youth who come along, and I mean they're not quite that captive audience, but we can generally expect who, or come to predict who will show up, which can be quite useful for things like layout of our young adult area and creating displays for things like out on the shelves. So back in 2021, the Johnsonville Library won. The Johnsonville Library won the Inside Out on the shelves display for most creative. This is it here, and this was a real collaboration between library staff and the teens who attended youth nights, because all those little painted laser cut wooden figures, those were painted by the attendees who came along to youth night. And so the fact that they contributed to this display and had a say in what it was just really gave them a sense of sort of ownership over the young adult area, because they could see their artwork on display there. Several of the figures that have survived the last 2 years are still on display on our young adult shelves, and also pride that something they did won an award. We do like recognition. We did repeat this again this year for our out on the shelf display, and this year they painted all these little moths and mushrooms, and also fairies from Daisy Meadows' Rainbow Magic Fairy series. And this year we didn't win, but we did come second. We got runner-up in the community library category. So youth nights do give us the opportunity to discuss with youth about what they would like to see in our library and ideas for things like our displays and awards. Another thing we've been doing is, over the summer, our summer reading adventure, we have recently swapped the way we're doing it. Previously it was run through our website and through our sort of kids blog live journal page. But as of the 2021-2022 summer, we switched to using Beanstack, which can be accessed either through a browser or an app. And really changed it up and made it fantastic. We had huge success with children taking part over that 2021-2022 summer, and 2022-2023, so the most recent summer, we added in 2 new age categories, one for teens aged 13 to 18 and one for adults aged 16 plus. So there is overlap there, which means that the older teens were able to decide which version of the summer reading adventure they wanted to take part in. I've got a few numbers. They are much lower than the than those who signed up for the children's one. But here's a look at our summer reading adventure guide for teens if you're interested in that. So we had around 100 teens sign up for the teen challenge, and about 24, 25 sign up for the adult challenge, which was lower than the children and the adult aged 19 and up. But I feel it was a very good start since it was only just launched last year. And this year we are planning to promote our summer reading adventure much more intensively. So we're optimistic about how that will go. Summer reading adventure has different sort of quest lines or challenges that can either be completed at home by visiting libraries or throughout Wellington. So a teen can still engage with the library from home, or they might be encouraged to come into the library over the summer. We've also been doing this year a lot of feedback searching, trying to see what all the young people, the rangatahi in our city want. We had these postcards that were out on display earlier this year in a sort of available in that suggestion box style in all our branches, as well as a few school libraries whose friendly school librarians kindly set them out on display for us. And some of the common feedback we've been getting, as you see, we're asking, how would you describe your library and what is your ideal library? A lot of the common feedback has been a focus on coziness, places that are comfy to hang out in. Some focus on sort of low sensory areas, and also the importance of sort of community and being connected to that space. So this feedback here is going to be used and is already very useful for what Stephen was talking about, which is the design of the young adult area at the future Te Matapihi young adult area. That is a priority for Stephen. Back in the old version of that library, the old central, as we call it, the young adult area was on the ground floor, and if there was a big event, that's the area that the shelves would all be shuffled off to the side to make space for a crowd, which the message you're sending there is not the message we necessarily wanted to get across, of you can be moved out of the way for something more important. So having that that young adult area in Te Matapihi that is fixed and permanent and a space just for rangatahi and a sense of permanence and ownership is something that we're really working towards. And this feedback here is also contributing to more immediate projects. At a recent meeting of our youth engagement team, we decided that one of our immediate focuses will be to refresh the young adult areas in several of our branch libraries around the city. We can use this feedback, condense it together and create some guidelines of what people have been asking for, so that our spaces are or do feel more like they belong to the youth who use them, which is a project we will be starting soon, and it's one I'm quite excited about because I like rearranging things and seeing new spaces. I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome. Then the last point I'm just going to cover is that social media. who uses Facebook anymore under the age of, well, who under the age of 19 will use Facebook? So much of our library social media presence and content feels like it's targeted more at adults or adults who have young children. So we have received approval and will be creating a youth-specific Instagram account that will be still, owned by and affiliated with Wellington City Libraries, but content will be targeting this age group specifically. Many of we have received feedback from teens that they would prefer something that is just for them. So this is still in the figuring out the administration side of things. But our goal for it is that the content we create for this will be a mixture of staff created content promoting library services, collections and events, and also content created by rangatahi themselves, which could be artworks they've created in our spaces, music they've recorded in the recording studio in the makerspace, activities at youth night, or poetry written for the teen poetry journal Tūhono. So that's in the works, and that will come. Teenagers are a hard audience to get to because you need to reach them directly. But we are working on it, and we've definitely made some steps in the last couple of years, which I'm quite happy about, and I'm excited to see what we manage to do in the future. And I think that's me. So I'll pass it back over to you, Jennifer.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary. It must be quite satisfying to see an increase in teen and rangatahi use of the library space, and to feel that you're reaching out, you're reaching them. It's not an easy job, and you have to market yourself, and then once you've marketed yourself, you have to market to them, and then they have to come into the library. So big ups. I'd like to thank all of our speakers today, Stephen, Claude, Claire, Joseph and Mary. Thank you very much, everybody. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time for questions, but if you have specific questions, perhaps you could send them to the LIANZA office. So that's LIANZA admin at, thank you, office admin, one word, at lianza.org.nz, and they can pass them on to the relevant person for to get them answered. So thanks once again, and thanks to our audience for staying with us. It has been it's quite a long session today, but from the feedback I've seen that everybody has enjoyed it, and the speakers have been absolutely amazing. So thank you again, and see you again soon. Kia kaha, ka kite.